Good evening everyone. I welcome you all on behalf of Vivekananda Study Circle. To begin with, we will maybe start with the blessings of Almighty. Shuklam Varadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Jananeem Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayam Shritva Pranamami Murmu Namah Shri Adirajaya Vivekananda Surani Satchit Sukasvarupaya Swami Tapo Vanam. Very good evening to all present here. Let me introduce Vivekananda Study Circle at IISc. So, the main motive of Vivekananda Study Circle at IISc is to give proper guidance to interested youth in the light of values, in the light of Swamiji's teachings over culture, moral, and life. So, on account of it, we meet every Monday. Till last year it was on every Tuesday, and this year we shifted it to every Monday. And our mentor Bhoodan sir guides us. So we read certain topics or certain books by Swamiji, and we have an interactive discussion with our mentor, and our mentor guides us. And so one more interesting feature is that this year VSC at Indian Institute of Science steps into 15th, makes a 15th step into its progress, I can say. So now I would like to introduce Swami Siddhartha Krishnaji. We are very much delighted to have you here, Swami. Yes, thank you for coming here. Thank you, Chinaman, for bringing Swami here. Yes, I will just give you an intro about Swami. Siddhartha Krishnaji is a Sanskrit scholar and yoga philosophy teacher, inspired by his mother, a renowned yoga teacher, and his father, who walked alongside Vinobaji in the Bhoodan movement. Siddharthji was destined from very young age to explore a unique path. As a child, Siddharthaji joined the revered Kailash Ashram in Rishikesh. Saints such as Swami Vivekananda, Abhedananda, Swami Tapo Vanam all have been from the same place. Siddharthaji studied at the ashram for more than 12 years and continued his service there for many more years. A skilled orator and a much respected teacher, Siddharthaji frequently lectures in English and Hindi on the Vedas, Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, and writings of Adi Shankaracharya, and much more. So now I welcome you, Swami, for giving us a talk on the stages of Vedanta. It's a very interesting topic. Now I hand it over to you, Swami. Thank you so much.
Am I clearly audible? Thank you very much for the introduction. Let's start with a moment of silence, just to start with a short prayer to Bhagavad. वक्षःस्थले कौस्तुभं नासाग्रे नवमोक्तिकाकरे सर्वाङ्गे हरिचन्दनं सुललितम् कंठे च मुक्तावलिः गोपस्ति परिवेष्टितो विजयते It is a great honor to be sitting and discussing the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita at this great campus and in this Vivekananda Center. So thank you very much for having me. The topic of today's discussion is stages of Karma Yoga, dimensions of Karma Yoga. The Bhagavad Gita describes 3 types of yoga, 3 forms of yoga. One is Karma Yoga. The first 6 chapters primarily focus on this aspect. That's why the first 6 chapters are referred to as Karma Shakta, the 6 chapters on Karma, action. Then the second group of 6 chapters from the 7th to the 12th, it's Bhakti. Unconditional, supreme love to the source of this universe which has produced each one of us, which is like our mother, our father, takes care of us throughout life. That is Bhakti Yoga. And then the last group of 6 chapters primarily discusses Jnana Yoga, the yoga of wisdom, yoga of experiential insights, realization of one's true nature. Now, the way Bhagavad Gita places Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga makes it abundantly clear that Karma Yoga is really the foundation. Karma Yoga is the foundation of Bhakti Yoga. Karma Yoga is the foundation of Jnana Yoga. As a practice which purifies the heart, which cleanses the heart, it prepares the heart for Bhakti Yoga, and it prepares the buddhi, the faculty of understanding through which we understand something. It prepares that as well to acquire jnana, to acquire wisdom. So it's really the fundamental practice that the Bhagavad Gita has to offer. The third chapter is known as Karma Yoga, which the name itself, because each and every chapter of the Bhagavad Gita has been given a name. So the name of the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is Karma Yoga because it primarily addresses, even though the idea of Karma Yoga has also been discussed in the fourth chapter, also in the fifth chapter, but still, the third chapter focuses primarily, exclusively, absolutely just on the idea of Karma Yoga. And in this chapter, one can identify several stages of evolution on this path of Karma Yoga, which really work like landmarks for someone who is interested in pursuing the path of Karma Yoga. And that is the idea that I want to discuss today. So we have at least a fundamental idea of what Karma Yoga in the understanding of Bhagavad Gita is about. What are the various stages, dimensions of it? So the first thing that Bhagavan Sri Krishna mentions at the very beginning of the third chapter is the idea of akarma, non-action, which is something that is absolutely unacceptable. He mentions it just so that it becomes clear that inactivity, lack of action, is not acceptable. Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtati akarmakrit. No one, indeed, jatu is an expression of emphasis. Is emphasized. No one can actually remain without engaging in actions. Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtati akarmakrit. Karyate hyavashah karman sarvaih prakriti buddhi. These gunas, the three gunas, sattva guna, rajo guna, and tamo guna, these three gunas force us. And in English, maybe when we say action, we may be thinking only physical action. But in Sanskrit, it's manasa, vacha, karma. Even speaking, manasa, vacha, kayena, with the body. So it's with the mind, with speech, as well as with the body. So what Bhagavan Sri Krishna explains that, see, he speaks of this Jagat Chakra, this wheel of life or wheel of existence, where water gets absorbed by the rays of the sun, and then it precipitates back in the form of snow, rain, etc., depending on where we live. And it is this process, this chakra, this cycle, this constant revolving wheel, which makes it possible for food and life to actually exist on the face of the earth. Without this, this would be impossible. And it's like this is just an example, just a very basic rudimentary example. Everything, even in our body, every organ is doing its work. I mean, the heart has to continuously pump, so it's continuously work. Even when we sleep, the brain has to work to give us this experience of sleeping. That's why in yoga, nidra is not, deep sleep is not the absence of anything happening in the mind, but it is in fact seen as an occurrence, as an activity which the mind has to produce for us to give that experience, for us to have that experience of emptiness. Like this in today's understanding, that every part of our being has to work for us to Similarly, everything around us, this planet Earth, which appears so stable, is actually revolving not only around its axis, but around the sun. And that is what makes life possible. The sun itself is traveling. So there is constant movement, constant activity. How can someone evolve by not engaging in action? So that is the first thing that Bhagavan Shri Krishna mentions. And why he had to mention this, why this was so important for him, because before him there was a tradition which was also part of Sankhya Yoga, that karmana badhyate jagduhu. Karma leads to bondage. We often speak of karma bandhana, the bondage imposed upon us by our actions. So karmana badhyate jagduhu, vidyaya cha vimuchyate. On the other hand, wisdom, insight into the nature of reality leads us towards freedom. Tasmat karma na kurvanti yadaya paradarshana. That's why great yatis, great mahatmas, they don't engage in action. So rather they engage in meditation. And so this sort of gave a misunderstanding which Bhagavan Shri Krishna in the 3rd chapter clarifies that later on it will become one of the next stages, yajna. That yajna, the kind of action which is inspired by yajna, that does not lead to action. So this was misunderstood by Arjuna. And Arjuna thought that why should I engage in such activity? And let me become a monk. Let me take a Param Bhiksham Haloki. It is better for me to become a mendicant than engage in such cruel acts. But how for Bhagavan Shri Krishna? Moksha, or freedom from ignorance, does not evolve out of not engaging in actions, but in fact passionately engaging in the well-being of all beings. That is his idea, which he will come to in the 5th chapter when he says, the rishis, great saints and sages, they acquire nirvana. He uses the word nirvana by passionately engaging in the well-being of all beings. And for that, the first thing that Bhagavan Shri Krishna has to make clear absolutely is that in his teachings, in his understanding, there is absolutely no space for akarma, for the lack of activity. Now, how to free oneself from akarma? That's the question. The next thing that Bhagavan Shri Krishna then introduces is the idea of niyatakarma. Niyatakarma. This is something very, very deep. When he says to Arjuna, Niyatam Guru Karmatva, engage yourself in Niyatakarma. Why? Because karma, action, is greater than akarma. Karma jyanuhi akarma. Karma is greater than akarma. Sharira yatra vichate prasiddhi karma. Even the Sharira Yatra, the existence of this body, would be absolutely impossible if you would not engage in activities. And I think today, often I hear dietitians and health practitioners say that the biggest killer after smoking has become our sedentary lifestyle. The fact that we are sitting all the time because we are not engaging in enough activity. That's how important activity is, even just for the body. So Sharira Yatra, Bhagavan Shri Krishna already knew that Sharira Yatra would be impossible if you would not engage in activity. So So now, the suggestion he has to Arjuna is Niyata Karma. Engage in Niyata Karma. What is Niyata Karma? That's the question which we... It can be translated as duty, as allotted work. But then the question comes, allotted by whom? And the answer that Bhagavad Gita has, first of all, we have to understand a little bit of difference. The Vedas worry more about avoiding non-radiant deeds or dark deeds or ignorant deeds by engaging in radiant deeds, in deeds which are inspired by knowledge and wisdom. One can see that, for example, in Vishalas if you want to live a life of 100 years, then do so by engaging yourself only in wholesome deeds, deeds which are inspired by the light of wisdom. But Bhagavan Shri Krishna is more concerned about something else. For him, the idea is rather to avoid akarma by engaging in niyama. And why I am saying this, that if it is niyata karma, then even if it is a little bit unwholesome, even if it is a little bit harmful, he says that's fine. Sahajam karma kaunteya sadosham, even if there are doshas. This is something that would require a lot of discussion. But sahajam karma kaunteya, as long as it is niyata karma, sahaja karma, sadosham, even if there are some doshas attached to it. Sahajam karma kaunteya sadosham abhi nandati. Don't leave it. Don't abandon it. Engage in it. If it is niyata karma. Now, what is niyata karma? That's the question that we need to ask. Allotted by whom? There is a shloka in the Bhagavad Gita. Am I clearly audible back there? Prakriti niyata swayam. Our prakriti, our nature, which is again the result of past deeds, in the idea of punarjanma, it can also be the result of. Because all of us are born with a certain temperament, with a certain nature, the way we talk to others, the way we behave towards them. We have certain inclinations, certain interests. And all of that is the result of our prakriti. And prakriti niyata swayam. To put it in very simple terms, our own nature guides us into a certain, for example, certain people want to become doctors, others want to become lawyers, others want to become scientists, others become Sanskrit scholars. There is certainly a nature, their prakriti, which is pushing them in that direction. And that's why they explore those fields. And then when the society, when the parents and the teachers, they see that temperament, they see that inclination, okay, this person would be a wonderful mathematician, this person would become, this student would become a wonderful teacher, this student would become a wonderful scientist. Then they nourish that tendency. And after they have nourished that tendency, and then when the person has evolved into a scientist, or an author, becoming a scholar, after that, then he gets a certain duty towards the society to give back. But now, and it was initially chosen by his own prakriti. He was the one who was interested in it. The society supported it. And now the duty that that person has towards the society is that because the society nourished it, the society supported it, now how can I offer back to the society? That is our duty towards. And when I say society, in the Bhagavad Gita, one thing is very, very clear. Because the divinity is present within the hearts of all beings. Sarva Bhutamayam Hari Bhagavan is present within the hearts of all beings. This becomes a form of bhakti. This becomes a form of devotion. So, but Bhagavan Shri Krishna does not mention all of that right now. He just says that first identify your niyata. Find out what is your niyata dharma, what is your duty, decided by your own prakriti. Because that is what you would be able to contribute best. Because that's where you would have your passion, that is where you have your interest, that's where you can give your best to the society. So first, we have to identify, particularly in the 18th chapter, with the help of identifying gunas. Am I sattvic by nature? Am I rajasic by nature? Or there is nothing to be ashamed. If somebody is tamasic by nature, that person too, from his tamasic nature, from his ignorant nature, can still contribute something to the society. Can help. That's his nature. So the same thing like in Ayurveda, we identify the doshas, and depending on that, we decide which medicine has to be taken, which type of lifestyle. Is vata aggravated, is pitta aggravated, so the same thing here with sattva, rajas and tamas. That is what we find in the 18th chapter. So Bhagavan Shri Krishna goes very, very deep into this idea of niyata karma, how to identify niyata karma. Bhagavad Gita has a deep analysis of that, but here in the 3rd chapter, he introduces this idea of niyata karma as a step to full-heartedly engage in niyata karma, and by that avoiding akarma, which is harmful not only for the society, when as an inactive member of the society we are not only becoming a parasite on the society, but we are also actually harming ourselves. So akarma is something that Bhagavan Shri Krishna was absolutely harmful, and niyata karma. So the niyata karma of our doctor, because of his nature, just to give an example, because of his nature, because of his inclination, because of his tendencies, he has chosen that profession. And now, if someone is brought to him and he needs to save the life of that person, and he says that give me 5 minutes, just let me finish the Bhoodan, that's where I find the problem comes. That in that person, in that moment, what niyata karma would dictate is that immediately, no matter what, whether the person is capable or incapable, but immediately contributing back, that would be following the principle of niyata. So that is the next stage. So the idea of niyata karma helps us really to recognize that no matter what our duty or our work is, it can become a means of inner purification. For Bhagavan Shri Krishna, niyata karma is really to engage self-heartedly, selflessly in niyata karma is what leads to inner purification. In fact, Bhagavan Shri Krishna even says that niyatasya sannyasah karmano nopapadyate. Under no circumstances should someone ever abandon niyata karma. Under no circumstances. He totally closes the door and says, no, there is no excuses on niyata karma. This should never be abandoned. The advice that he gives introduce is that instead of abandoning your niyama, let's do something different. If you want to abandon, and see again, this is not something that Krishna advises, but it is something that comes. Arjuna wanted to abandon. Arjuna wanted to practice sannyasa. Arjuna wanted to renounce something. Then Bhagavan Shri Krishna said, don't renounce your duty. But if you want to, and you want to, I'm not saying that you should renounce, but if you want to renounce really something, then don't renounce your niyadharma. Renounce the desire for fruit that is attached in engaging in your niyadharma. Renounce that. And do it right now. Because the Vedas say, the day you feel vairagya, leave samsara. So do it right now. Why to wait? That will be after 10 days and by that time maybe the mind changes. So do it right now. But don't renounce your duty. If at all you want to, and I'm making this very, very clear. Bhagavan Shri Krishna nowhere asks Arjuna that you should renounce the fruit of your action. That is absolutely Arjuna's decision. Arjuna wanted to renounce his duty, his work. So what? The only thing that Bhagavan Shri Krishna suggests. And why this idea of renunciation? Because on the spiritual path, on the path of inner evolution, renunciation has been seen as something tremendously powerful. In fact, the very first Upanishads, Ishavatsu Upanishads, Maharshi Dadhyanatha, who is the first teacher who teaches Maitri, Vishwamantra, and Vishwashanti, the first teacher who teaches loving kindness, the first teacher who teaches world peace, from extreme intimacy. In the very first mantra of Ishavatsu, he says this, Tena Yaktena Anjina. On this path, if you want to nourish it, if you want to evolve, then that happens only through Tyaga. And that's why Tyaga is something that was always deeply respected in the Indian culture. No matter whether it was the Tirthankaras, whether it was one of the 24 Buddhas, or whether it was the great Rishis, the great Acharyas, what was respected by a common person in this country was always Tyaga, renunciation. And of course, we can renounce only something what we have. It's not purpose renunciation. It is renunciation of something that we have acquired after tremendous hard work. The renunciation that Patanjali even speaks of, renunciation of knowledge, renunciation of wisdom. First of all, the whole yogic journey is about acquiring knowledge, acquiring renunciation, and then ultimately, para vairagya, higher vairagya for him, is even to transcend and go beyond the knowledge that we have acquired, the ritambhara prajna that we have acquired as a result of such tremendous hard work. So, niyadharma. We don't need to find any new action of karma yoga. We can actually practice karma yoga in whatever we are doing. That's the point that I want to make. We don't need to find some other action for us to practice karma. We can practice karma yoga in whatever we are doing. Now, as a step, as a next step, towards further evolution on this path, Bhagavan Shri Krishna introduces the next step of Karma Yoga, which is the idea of yajna. Now, the idea of yajna is simply, we have to look at it from a very broad perspective. That's the perspective that Bhagavad Gita gives. Usually, when I am saying this, because when you hear the word yajna, you just think of kindling a fire and then swaha, swaha. I'm not talking about that. That's not what is meant. The idea of offering something to the nature. So, for the easiest example would be that a farmer has to keep some of the crop for the next year. And even if the farmer is hungry, even if his family is hungry, he cannot consume it. He has to keep it and he has to offer it back to Mother Nature. If he doesn't do that, then there will be no crops next year, and he will have to remain hungry for the rest of the year. So this principle of having to offer something, and like this we have to sacrifice. As students we have to sacrifice to achieve. If we want to achieve something in this life, then the principle of sacrifice is fundamental. It's again one of those fundamental principles of this universe where something has to be sacrificed to create something new, something great, something grander. That is where also the principle of renunciation comes into play. Without sacrifice, nothing can be achieved. It's as simple as that in the case of farming. It's impossible. You have to sacrifice something. You have to sacrifice the crops of the previous year. You have to sacrifice. You would have eaten it, but you not have to sacrifice it back into the cycle of Mother Nature. So that is the second idea that Bhagwan Sri Krishna introduces. Again, yajna is a great idea. The Upanishads, the Vedas talk in great detail about it, how there are great messages, but today, keeping the time constraint, let's proceed to the next one. Now, such sacrifice can still be done with the selfish interest. That I'm sacrificing this because I want to achieve this. And what I achieve as a result of that, I will keep for myself. This is still not karma yoga. Up to this stage, we have not yet reached from near the karma to yajna. And that's why sakama karma, sakama yajna is prominent. There are so many yajnas also in the Vedas which are performed with a selfish interest, with a selfish desire. Such yajnas, while they fulfill our desires, such sacrifices fulfill our desires, they don't lead us higher on this spiritual path. So up to here it's not. Then the next thing that he introduces is nishkama. Action without a desire for its results. When he says that tasmadasattaha satatam karyam karma samachara. Do your karya karma, which means niyata karma. Do your niyata karma without being attached to the results of that niyata karma. Asaktu, and that's where he makes the great grand promise. Asaktu hi acharam karma. When a person engages in niyata karma without being desirous of its results for himself or herself, then Paramapnodi Purusha. Then that he attains that Parama Purusha, which means Purusha. The word Purusha simply has two meanings. Either it can mean that which resides within this body, which means the pure consciousness that is within the hearts of all beings, or Purnatva Purusha, that which fills up everything, the omnipresent reality. So the reality that is within us and the reality that is all around us, that is what the word Purusha refers to. So a person acquires Parama Purusha, the highest Purusha, the highest, purest state of consciousness, by engaging in niyata without a desire. So now karma is no more karma. Now it has become karma. So from the karma, the idea first of all, what we need to identify is our niyata karma. How can we contribute to the society? And it can be as simple as cleaning the streets. It can be as simple work as that. It can be anything. It can be any work. But how can I contribute to the society? And then yajna. What do I need to sacrifice to acquire grander results? That has to be identified. And then the next, that sacrifice, am I doing it for myself? Am I sacrificing something for myself? Am I sacrificing my time, my effort, my knowledge for a selfish purpose? Or am I sharing the results with others? If I'm keeping it for myself, I will be a happy person. I'm not doing anything wrong. There is nothing wrong in that. Every law will protect the results as mine. They will say, no, this belongs absolutely only to you. You don't need to share it with anyone. You can fully enjoy it yourself. You can do with it whatever you want to. You absolutely feel there's nothing wrong about it. But don't think then such action will lead to higher realization, into becoming a better human being. That transformation can only happen when we start sharing the results of our action. That is when karma does not remain karma alone, but it becomes karma yoga. And yoga simply means a method that leads us into meditation, a method that leads to union with the divine, to the unity with the divinity. So, now it has become karma yoga, yet Bhagavan Sri Krishna in the 5th chapter says that still no one engages in any action without a purpose. So there must be a purpose still. So the purpose is inner purification of the heart. And this is what Yoginaha Karma Kurbandi Sangam Tyakva Atma Shuddhaya, great yogis engage in Nishkama Karma for inner purification. On the path of Indian spirituality, I think Karma Yoga is the single and the only and the most powerful detergent to cleanse the heart, which then very naturally prepares the heart for Bhakti Yoga and Jnana. The stages of Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga unfold very naturally. A person does not need to make an effort to acquire those stages. Now, after Nishkama Karma, the story of Bhagavan Sri Krishna does not stop. See, to reach the level of Nishkama Karma, one thing is necessary. That is love. It is only in love, when we love, that we start acting selflessly. Out of love, there always has to be some push. Something that pushes us towards action. What is it in the case of Nishkama? In the case of Nishkama, it is bhakti towards the divinity present within the hearts. So Nishkama Karma, the level of Nishkama Karma cannot be truly mastered to its perfection without introducing Bhakti Yoga into our practice of Karma Yoga. So Nishkama Karma Yoga, the level of Nishkama Karma Yoga becomes perfect only when Bhakti Yoga has been introduced. And then the next level, Ahankartritva Purvaka Karma, in which a person now, we have achieved the level in which we are absolutely engaging in our Niyat Karma without a desire for its results. But if the sense of doership is still present, that I am doing it, then some certain desire to take credit will always be there. And Bhagavan Sri Krishna says that if this desire is there, then it means that there is still somewhere some subtle identification with the body, with the mind, with the senses, with the drishya, with the perceived reality, and the pure identification with the perceiver has not strengthened yet. So now the idea of Dhyana Yoga has to be introduced into Karma Yoga, and Karma Yoga evolves into the next level when Dhyana Yoga is introduced into Karma Yoga. That is when Ahankartritva Tyaga Purvaka Karma, which means action in which the sense of doership, that I am doing this action, this has been planted. So that would be the next stage. And only after that, at the end, Bhagavan Shri Krishna introduces the idea of Yoga Sangraha, in which he asks, and in this he is not only asking others, but he is giving his own example that look at me, I am engaged in action, in actions that uplift the society. Yoga Sangraha. The way Shankaracharya puts it is very subtle. He says that what such a sage does, that whenever such a sage sees the society going into the wrong direction, like when we love somebody and that person is going into the wrong direction, we just simply, very lovingly hold the hand and say, no, that direction is harmful. Don't go there. You will harm yourself. Go into this direction. This much of gentle nudge, gently showing the direction, that is what is understood by Yoga Sangraha. What my teachers used to say, that without this higher understanding, if we try to serve the society, which is of course trying to serve the society is very, very beautiful, and it's always a commendable work, but we should always be careful that we don't try to save a fish from drowning in water. Because that's what happens sometimes out of ignorance, because we think that we get drowned in water, so we suddenly see a fish in water and pull it out and try to save it. That sometimes happens in the name of serving the society, and that we end up due to our own ignorance, because we have not trained the tools and the instruments. We have not trained ourselves for that purpose. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes. In an unintentional, we also end up harm. But if we truly prepare ourselves through this path, then Bhagavan Shri Krishna lays out in his teachings, Karma Yoga, these different steps. So let me just quickly summarize all the 6 steps, and then we can have a question and answer session.
It's like an example of this. You are trying to save the fish from the water.
Yes.
So can you just give an example?
Okay. An example of this would be all our Samaja Sevakas. Sometimes when I meet politicians, they very often say that अब तो हमने समाज सेवा का काम ले लिया है. They have started serving the society. But I cannot blame them, because that selfish interest, they did not free themselves from that. Those selfish interests, that tendency of taking credit that I am doing it. But I think the kind of Samaja Sevakas that gave India its independence, the great leaders, they were very different. They were Samaja Sevakas created by the Bhagavad Gita, starting from Bhagavad Gita ji up to someone like Mahatma Gandhi, and even after Mahatma Gandhi, someone like Vinobaji. These were the Samaja Sevakas which were created by the society, which were not interested in taking any credit, they were not interested in it, they had no selfish interest. The kind of Samaja to us that this country has had lately Bhagwan Shankaracharya, lately Swami Vivekananda, lately great saints like Ramana Maharshi or Ramakrishna, lately Swami Ramadhita. From extremely the rishis and the rishikas of the Vedas, they were not even interested in us knowing their names. It was only later teachers who preserved their names. They did not like today, at the end of every poetry, the poet leaves their name at the end. They never did it. They never did it. Because they were not at all for them, they were just pointers. What is being pointed at, that should be seen. They were no one. And they were the ones who truly immensely benefited the society. Why? Because of these two things, karma and kartritva bhava. These two things were absent. That is what is the radical transformation. That is what takes karma into karma yoga and then ultimately to yoga. So let me just quickly summarize once again. It's a detailed discussion. It's a very detailed discussion. I've tried to shorten it into 45 minutes. So once again, akarma, Bhagwan Sri Krishna discusses akarma, something that should be absolutely avoided. Then he encourages us to identify our niyata karma and then understand the principle of sacrifice, how important it is to achieve something great, something larger than life. The principle of sacrifice, the principle of yajna, the perspective that Krishna has of yajna, the yajna that we think of just burning some fire and doing swaha, swaha, that is the rudimentary, preliminary form of yajna. Dravya yajna, tapo yajna, then austerity, yoga yajna, even the practice of yoga, swadhyaya yajna, swadhyaya dhyana yajna. So swadhyaya itself, self-study is a great form of yajna. And then ultimately, the acquiring of wisdom is in the understanding of Vedanta. The greatest sacrifice is the sacrifice which we make to acquire wisdom. That is jnana. But again, all of this can be done with the selfishness. A person can very well practice yoga, tapasya. Ravana also did tapasya. Ravana was a great tapasya, but he did it with selfishness. He did not do it selflessly. Krishna also performed tapasya 5 years in Badrinath, Mahabharata versus. He did it selflessly. So we see the radical difference between someone like Ravana and someone like Krishna, who did it selfishly and selflessly. So all of these yajnas can be practiced selfishly. Bhagwan Shri Krishna, by introducing the idea of nishkama karma, encourages us to practice them without any selfish interest. And that comes, as I said, when bhakti yoga merges with karma. Otherwise it's impossible. And then when jnana yoga merges in karma yoga, then a person starts giving up this sense of doership, this sense of why that I am doing this. Rather, it's happening to me. I have been chosen as an instrument, like Bhagavad Shri Krishna asked Arjuna, nimitta matram bhavasavya. Just become a nimitta. So that approach comes, and then things start happening. So if you look at the lives of great saints, Swami Vivekananda was just chosen to be an instrument. Vinobaji, Ramana Maharshi, did they really do something that I'm doing it, I have to do this? Things were just simply happening through them. They were chosen as an instrument. And that's why they benefited the society immensely. If today this world is still a good place, if it is still a better place, of course, a lot can be done. I think there is a major contribution from these great great saints and sages throughout the centuries who have guided not only this country but the entire world. So I will conclude by saying that Bhakti Yoga and Dhyana Yoga are ultimately just toppings, just topping on top of Karma Yoga to take it further, to take it higher. And this is the approach that Shankaracharya takes in the Bhagavad Gita. Usually I often hear people speaking about Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga and Dhyana Yoga to be three distinct paths. In Shankaracharya's understanding of the Bhagavad Gita, they are not three distinct paths. Okay, I'm more a Karma Yogini or a Bhakti Yogini. He is a Jnana. Not that kind of approach, but since all of us have our hands, we have our head, and we have our heart, we need to evolve all the three aspects of it. We need to use all the three tools to serve the divinity present within the hearts of our beings. I think that is the message behind doing Namaste, which is so beautiful because we are folding our arms, pressing it against our heart, and then bowing down with our head. Reminding simply ourselves. The other person thinks he's giving respect to me, that this is just, we are doing Namaste in fact for ourselves, to remind ourselves that the purpose and the goal of my life is to use my hands, Karma Yoga, my heart, Bhakti Yoga, and my head, Dhyana Yoga, to serve the divinity present within the heart of this. Yes. So thank you very much for joining me for this short discussion on Karma Yoga. If any thoughts?
Thank you so much for the wonderful session. It was really great session. I would like to take some questions.
Yes.
Thank you for such an response. So I'm a PhD student here. I have one question. Like when we do some simple work, any day-to-day work, what should be the conscious thought process that should be going on to make it economical?
Yes.
Practical.
Yes. I think every time there is a beautiful passage by Bhagavan Shankaracharya. Yadyat karma karomi tattadakhilam shambho tavakata. Whatever action I'm doing it with an awareness that this is a worship. Oh Shambhu, this is a worship towards you. So, when that awareness comes, I remember that when I was taking care of Vinobaji after he lost his eyes. One of my teachers every time used to say that, Siddhartha, whenever you are giving bath to Vinobaji, just think you are doing Rishikesh. If you are massaging his feet, think, just people worship statues in temples. Here is a living statue in front of you. Just bring that awareness. Then your whole service to your Father will not just remain a service that we have, that we do towards our parents, but it becomes full. So I think the only thing that radically transforms is the awareness that we bring to whatever we are doing. That is, I think, what I understand as the idea of karma yoga. That whatever we are the karma, that's why Bhagavan Shri Krishna, this is rooted really in the Bhagavad Gita itself. Swakarmana tamabhyachya siddhim vindati manavaha. The manava, a human being, attains perfection. And when Bhagavan Shri Krishna uses the word manava, again and again Madhusudan Saraswati comes up and he says, see, he has said manava. He doesn't say any particular category of human beings. But any human being, worship the divinity through their own activity, if they would just bring that awareness to the action that they do. Swakarmana. Swakarmana is the same as niyatakarma. Swakarma, niyatakarma, sahajakarma, swadharma. These are all synonyms. They mean the same thing in the Bhagavad Gita. So swakarmana tamabhyarcha. By worshipping the divinity, abhyarchana, archana we all understand. But today we have a very limited understanding of archana. Today when we speak of archana, we think that okay, that only happens in temples. Yes, that is a starting point. That's a wonderful place to train, to get trained into archana. But how come if we continue doing archana only there? That archana has to happen everywhere. That is just like when we start learning how to drive, we first look for a safe space. That's a safe space. The environment is extremely beautiful. Everybody is charged with bhakti, with devotion. Nobody is engaged in unwholesome activities. Hopefully, that's what the temple is about. So it's a wonderful space, wonderful place to generate that awareness. But how do we continue to drive in safe spaces? That's important. We have to get out of the safe space and start driving in the traffic in all the challenging situations. So, swakarmana tamabhyarcha. Same thing in the no matter what, even if it's just our daily tasks, and that is also swakarma, because as a student we have duties, as a son we have certain duties towards our parents, as parents we have certain duties towards our kids. So all of that comes in swakarma. All of that comes in swakarma. Engaging them with an idea that I'm serving the omnipresent divinity present within the house. That is what transforms that karma into not only karma yoga, but into a puja, into a culture. And that leads to siddhim vindati manava, complete perfection for any human. That is the path.
Namaste, Shamaji. My question is also on a similar line. You explained mostly, but I want to take it slightly more forward. Like when you talk about Nishkama Karma, or in our understanding, taking the credit, right? So
Yes.
we all want to take credit on whatever we are doing. But if you put this on a observer versus doer framework, like I am observing whatever somebody is doing, and somebody is doing it, is doer. So as a doer, how does one raise in spiritual level when somebody does the spiritual, like Nishkama Karma? That is the first question. And second one is like when we are observing the doer is doing something, then obviously it becomes pattern for us that we also give credit to them. Like you cited example Ramana Maharishi, for example. Obviously when he did whatever work he had done, that time he did Nishkama Karma. He has not asked for any credit. But we as a society, it's our duty to give the credit to him for the knowledge he has passed on, right? So I want to understand more in this framework.
I'm sorry, but the question is not very clear to me. So there were two questions. One was related to Nishkama Karma, and the other one was related to, you said something about the society, which I didn't get.
Yeah, it's like anybody can do Nishkama Karma. Suppose you can also do something and Nishkama Karma.
Anybody. Let me first answer this. And one does not need to do 100% Nishkama Karma. Because usually what people think that, okay, till now I was doing Sakama Karma and now immediately that transformation has to happen. And in that process, we actually never do Nishkama Karma. But Bhagavan Shri Krishna says something very beautiful in the second chapter. What he says that, Swalpamapi asya dharmas. He doesn't say Alpa. Alpa means little. He says Swalpa. Extremely little. From what I am teaching you, Arjuna, extremely little of this also will help you to save yourself from a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. So even if not everybody's circumstances are the same, not everybody can practice 100% Nishkama Karma and say that, okay, that is what sannyasa is about. someone like Shankaracharya, when he takes sannyasa, someone like Swami Vivekananda, when they take sannyasa, the whole idea I am taking sannyasa is to create such life circumstances that I can practice 100% Nishtha. From now onwards, everything that I will do will be 100% Nishtha. Will be 100%. So that's fine for them because they have severed all the ties that they have, all the duties, limiting duties, so that they sever the limiting duties so they can pursue the duties towards the universe. So in their cases, 100% Nishtha karma is absolutely possible and they should engage in that. Someone who has committed their lives to it. But most of us, we don't even change. And so we give up the idea simply because we think that this is not for us. How can I engage in Nishtha karma? But that is because we look at the idea and we think that, oh, how can I do this? But every step that we actually see, every step that we take towards light takes us a step away from darkness, isn't it? So similarly, every step that we take away from works driven by selfish interests, from works driven in which we want to take sole credit. Every step that we take away from that, in the equal proportion, will help us to evolve and become a better human being. Like this, as we evolve by becoming better and better, in practicing the Guru, ultimately one day, it's our choice. Bhagavan Shri Krishna does not. The beautiful thing about whether it is the Vedas or the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita does not force anything on anyone. Even at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Shri Krishna beautifully says, Vimrisheta dashanshena yadhechasya. Vimrishi. Carefully think about what I have said. And then, yadhechasya. After that, you decide what you want to do. Yadhechasya. But think about it carefully. Try to understand what I'm trying to convey. Think about it. And then do whatever you want. So he also gives complete freedom. And another thing about the Vedas, the spirit actually comes from the Vedas. You know the word mantra. What the word mantra really means? Can anybody? Manana prayate mantra. We hear the definition. But something else. Do you know what's the language of China? What's the language of China? The Chinese language called in English. Mandarin, isn't it? The same word, it is derived from the same word actually. And we all know, isn't the word mantra also there in Pradhana Mantri, Mukhya Mantri? Why?
Counseling.
Because mantra also means advice. The advice which we give to the king. That's why the main advisor is called Pradhana Mantri. Others are called mantra, advices to the king. So the meaning of the word mantra is in fact advice. And since, if you look at the Upanishads, the individual, the person, the consciousness within the person is actually the ruler. You will see in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, just in one place, Bhagavan Shri Krishna has used the word Ishvara for Jiva. He has used the word Ishvara for Jiva because Jiva is the Ishvara in this body. He may not be the Ishvara of this universe, but within this body, the Jiva, this individual limited consciousness, is the Ishvara. And what the Vedic mantras are simply doing, they are just simply giving advices. And if we follow those teachings, we benefit. If we don't follow, then it will have consequences. That's all. So the beautiful thing is that imposed on anyone. Just beautiful advices, and particularly the language of the Bhagavad Gita is that motherly language. That's why Bhagavad Gita is, even though in Sanskrit the word Gita is always used in neuter gender. Always. Gita. It's always Gita. It's never Gita. But only in the name of this text. Suddenly, against all grammatical rules, because this particular pratyaya, this particular suffix is supposed to create always a neuter term, and it can never create a feminine term. And yet, Gita has become a feminine word. Why? Because she is treated like a mother. And why is she treated like a mother? Because she gives that subtle motherly advice. So, that was, I hope that answered your second question. The first question was about Karma Yoga, about Nishkama Karma Yoga, but I could not understand the question. Somehow the sound of the mic is a little bit not so clear, so I'm sorry, I apologize. But if you can just say the gist.
Yeah, I think I got the answer.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, please.
Namaskar, Swamiji. So my question is that as a part of Nishkarma, we are supposed to follow our duties and supposed to find divinity in our day-to-day duties by somehow serving the society.
Can I just, did you say Nishkarma or did you mean Nishkama?
Nishkama.
Nishkama. Okay.
Selfless karma, basically. So sometimes the society imposes duties on us.
Sometimes the society
imposes certain duties on us. And if we want to break out of certain duties to follow our heart, does that mean that we would be doing it in selfish interest?
That's the question which we need to ask ourselves. Are we seeking to gain something in selfish terms? Are we seeking to gain something for ourselves?
Say, for example, we want to choose a profession of our choice, and it is against the family's wishes. But somehow through that profession, you can also serve the society in general.
Yes.
So sometimes it becomes hard to decide what to fight for and what not to fight for.
They need to learn the Bhagavad Gita. They need to be taught the Bhagavad Gita, because if you have that wish, then my humble opinion would be that they should recognize this as coming from your Prakriti, and they should not impose their own ideals on us, and instead should respect the kind of Prakriti which we have inherited, the kind of Prakriti that where it leads, as long as genuinely the purpose is to serve the society. Then in that aspect, I think, first of all, as parents, at least the parents that I have experienced, they always gave me this immense freedom to choose, and I ended up choosing always because I deeply enjoyed what I was doing, studying the Shastras. But it was never, I was introduced to it, and Vinobaji decided to introduce me to the Shastras, but I stayed with them because of my interest in even, for example, my mother, she never, being a yoga teacher, she never imposed yoga asanas on me, and so patiently waited till the desire arose from within me. And then one day, when I went to her and I said, I want to start joining yoga asana classes. She was in absolute bliss. But before that, she never forced me into it. And unfortunately, yes, I understand from where the question is coming. And simply because our parents sometimes don't understand our prakriti, our nature, our inclinations. They have their own set ideals which the society tells that, oh, you should become a doctor, or a lawyer, or a judge, or whatever, certain ideals, and then they want their kids to reach if you impose something on someone against their prakriti, I'm not sure if they ever can really do it with happiness. Would they really be able to contribute passionately? If they are not even passionate about the work that they are doing, then how can they be passionate to serve the society through that? So that is something that our parents need to understand. Today, unfortunately, not everybody does. So I don't have a solution for that. But I guess with the study of the Bhagavad Gita, if Bhagavad Gita can be quoted and can be told that, see, this is my prakriti, this is my nature, I want to use my prakriti to serve, to create a better society. They should be able to understand it and respect it.
I did a course in psychology counseling. I can start and speak.
Maybe she just wants to contribute something to what has been said. So.
Maybe, I don't know, that we did a counseling course, and there they encourage that first you go to the counselor, tell your problem, and somehow the counselor manages to bring the parents along and make a little bit of understanding that this is a property, and if you go against it, what can harm and how it can. Yes.
That is the ideal. That is definitely really the ideal.
Namaste. So in Uttarachamakam they say, right, that we have affirmations that says pleasure of the world is with me, knowledge is with me, good health is with me. Is that the meaning of Uttarachamakam?
Yes.
Translate.
Yes.
So in that sense they say...
can you say the English words again so that I can think of the Sanskrit words, or say the Sanskrit?
I don't know the Sanskrit word properly.
Okay.
Om Shamashtame, Arukamashtame, Kamashtame, Somanashtame. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. So all the English meaning says about law of attraction. All the foreign speakers they say law of attraction, visualize positive, think positive, then think that you are good, healthy, you become healthy. Because all is in the mind. They say, keep saying, I'll start feeling unwell. So, like that, they say law of attraction. In all the law of attraction, foreign speakers say that the secret movie, everything is there in our Uttarachamakam. It says that good health is with me, longevity is with me, all that is the meaning. So, I want to ask you, like she told about the example, that if I start visualizing that my parents or my bosses will behave well, if I visualize think positive and if I have a good intention, will their minds can be changed? Because
will their minds be changed?
Can we change the environment around us by doing positive thinking, which is mentioned in this Uttarachamakam? Is that my question?
Okay. First of all, why Vedic texts sometimes encourage someone to cultivate karma as well, because sometimes to overcome unwholesome desires, the only path, so the shift is not immediately from our unwholesome desires into desirelessness. There is an intermediate step, and the intermediate step is first to transcend unwholesome desires by cultivating wholesome desires, beneficial desires. So that is the first thing, and then from there, desirelessness, nishkama karma, is encouraged. That is the first thing. So that's why in the Vedic paths there is this intermediate step, which Sri Krishna does not mention in the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is a very concise text. Cannot mention everything, but when we fill up the depths with the help of Vedic studies, then this aspect also comes in. So, Shubha Karma versus Ashubha Karma is the first step. That's why Sakama Karma with a desire, but with a wholesome desire, is also prescribed in the Vedas. So that is one thing, one aspect of what you said. Now the second aspect of trying to change the hearts of others through prayers, I think that is what Mahatma Gandhi tried to do in his. So when we really live something in our lives, and not only preach something in words, but really when it that's where Satya comes into the picture. And Bhagavan Patanjali has this very beautiful sutra that Satya Pratisthayam, when a person is firmly established in Satya, then Kriya Phalashayam, he acquires the power to inspire similar activity in others and similar results in others. So first of all, the question is how deeply we ourselves have imbibed the spirit, and when that's the test, the deeper we imbibe the spirit in ourselves, the easier. Why someone like Mahatma Gandhi could inspire someone like Vinobaji? He created something. How could Bhagavan Ramakrishna, Paramahansa, create someone like Swami Vivekananda? How? Because Ramakrishna Paramahansa had imbibed the essence, the spirit, absolutely in his own life. Otherwise, Swami Vivekananda, there would be hundreds and thousands of such people. He was a simple teacher, even an atheist. Yet he came to Ramakrishna Paramahansa. That radical transformation took place, and like this, Ramakrishna Paramahansa changed the lives of so many because he had changed his own life. So when we are firmly established in our own practice, the very test of that is that we can inspire similar actions. And of course, how much we inspire in them, that depends on their own on their own readiness. How far they are ready, how far they are prepared. Not everybody may be benefited from Ramakrishna Paramahansa the way Swami Vivekananda did. Thousands of people benefited by his presence. But there were degrees of benefit. Why? Because each one was prepared in their own way. Not everybody turned up to Swami Vivekananda, but still some kind of activity and some kind of results were inspired. Why? Because Bhagavan Ramakrishna Paramahansa was rooted in himself. And the same thing was the case with Swami Vivekananda. So when we are deeply rooted in this, that transformation comes.
So, is it Sabam Shri Krishna Paramastu? That means that I am giving all the fruits of the action to the God.
Exactly.
That is Krishna.
Exactly. Yat karoshi, yadashnasi, yat juhoshi, yadasi, yat tapasyasi kamudeyo, tat kurushi. So that is to give all the results back to the divinity present within the hearts of people.
So please don't judge me on what I say. Instead of doubt, one person is filled with hatred towards others, hatred towards the society, then can one progress in life?
If someone is filled with hatred
towards others and the society, can he or she progress in Karma Yoga?
If they are filled with hatred towards the society, can they progress through Karma Yoga? I think all of us are suffering from some hateful thoughts. And from where does this hatred come? This hatred comes, in fact, human beings are not it's not our natural tendency to hate others. But when our selfish interests get attacked, when someone else, we want this, I want this sweet, and someone else comes and has it, then we become angry, then we start hating the person. So, and all of us have these hateful thoughts. So even someone who has hatred, I think he's just the result of such hateful thoughts. And absolutely, I don't see any reason why such a person cannot progress through practicing. What would stop such a person from progressing and from eradicating this hatred? Because whole purpose of this path, if you look at the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Advesha Sarvabhuta, to create such a human being that does not hate anyone. So on one side we have this extreme, someone who hates the society, and then someone who absolutely hates you. Similarly, I was referring to Maharshi Gadhyavadharma, where he says, as a result of this realization, he does not hate anyone. So the whole purpose of this practice of Karma Yoga is to not only eradicate hatred that has evolved in us, but the root of that hatred, which is selfish interest, the root of that, which is this limited sense of I, the ego, and the root of that, which is ignorance, to eradicate all of them, and the results of hatred, which is fear. So that is the purpose of Karma Yoga. So I can't think of any other better practice to eradicate our hatred than the practice of Karma. That would be my first thought. But if there are some other nuances to the question which I may have missed, then please let me know. Sam wanted to say something since quite a long time. Here he's contributing.
Guruji, namaste. I was just reacting to the question about the choices in career. As you want to do something versus family or your related to you as a opinion. So in my personal career, when I was in school, I always liked inquiry.
Always liked inquiry.
And so creative thinking and inquiry, and I didn't know that was my strength, but it was. And so I was seeking, and so it was there. Then so I thought I was doing very good in mathematics. I'll do engineering, and that's all my mind was fixed on. My mother made sure that I did medicine, so because it just worked out that way. So I joined med school, and I was not sure. First saw dead bodies, and I thought I really hated the idea. I'm going to cut open dead bodies and looking at all the dead nerves and everything. 3 months into it, I almost came to a point I actually failed in my first anatomy test. I failed. So I thought I will quit. Just one day I come home and depressed. I said, "Oh, this is not." But little did I know that I didn't know my strength. And the moment I started seeing my patients, I realized there was a natural passion to serve. And very similarly, later I realized that inquiry was research. I found the passion in medical research, and it's later I found everything, and it's all like science and society. So the point I'm trying to say is that not that we have done enough of self-inquiry sometimes to know that exactly what we want to do, and so that's the only little piece I just want to share.
Yeah, thank you so much for this contribution, because finding one's Swadharma, I think even in the Bhagavad Gita, is the most difficult task, to really be able to pinpoint what my Prakriti is guiding me to finding that. That is a very, very big challenge.
So my question is not just limited in terms of perfect.
So just to clarify my question, when it comes to wanting something from our heart, like wanting something so strongly, it feels as an instinct. And sometimes when it goes against the society, against the people that we love, then we have to make a tough decision. Now I see there are two ways to do this. One is where I stick to what I want, and that shows dedication, conviction. The other is that I sacrifice, and I take the difficult paths, take the task in hand, do that properly. Both ways offer evolution. We will evolve in both. But is there a better way? Out of the two, is one better than the other?
So why are we separating them? Because even on the path that we want to follow, there will be sacrifice. Isn't it? So basically, it's just different. The path of sacrifice, you are separating it from this path that we want, simply because in the path of sacrifice, we are sacrificing our desires. Am I understanding it correctly? Okay, to prevent other people from getting hurt. To me, I'm just trying to understand it a little bit better. It's a deeply nuanced question. In Advaita Vedanta, there is an idea of lokavasana, trying to please everyone. And this is also seen as a type of vasana that actually prevents higher evolution. For example, Adi Shankaracharya wanted to pursue the path of sannyasa. Now he was the only child of his mother. Mother had already lost his father, her husband. So she was a lonely mother, a single mother, so to say. And so she would not have wanted Adi Shankaracharya to become what he wanted to become. And just imagine if she would have succeeded in that. What a loss it would be. Because India after Shankaracharya is not the same. I think two people that radically transformed India twice in its history and were tremendously influential. First it was Buddha, and then after that it was Shankaracharya. So just imagine a country in which Shankaracharya was not born. But now, what would be the answer there? From that perspective, I would say that if we want something very strongly and we are firmly convinced that this is the correct thing to do, this is how I can really benefit the society, then I think we should not care what others think, because they will come around at some point when they see what a wonderful work they are doing. On that day, they will say, oh, you pursued your dream, you pursued it, you did it, you managed it. They are going through. That's why yoga vasana, this vasana, sometimes the tendency to please, there are several vasanas that are discussed in the works. I don't remember all of them, but Shastra Vasana is there also. So these are sometimes very good vasanas, but they also block our evolution. So at some point they have to be left. And Yoga Vasana is desire to please everybody, to only do what is pleasing to others. If we are absolutely sure that this is the correct path, then there is no need to worry about what others think. That would be, if I understood your question correctly, that would be my first response.
So, due to time constraints, maybe we will end the Q&A session here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Wonderful interaction. I feel supercharged.
Thank you.
And that's what Vidura says. That's Vadhitasya tasyante sukhamidhati. If you have studied properly, the sign is that at the end of it, you feel light, you feel full of energy, you feel excited. So that's how you feel. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to this campus. Thank you very much. Thanks to Swami.
We would like to offer you a moment. We would like to request Professor Narayanan sir to hand over the yes.
like to thank you for inviting me and having such a lovely.
Then I would like to thank Shivananda for letting us know about that. Thank you. So we would like to end the session by Shanti. Priyatam Pundarikakshah Sarvayajneshwaro Harihi Tasmin Stushte Jagat Tushtam Prenite Prenitam Jagat Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Thank you so much.